During the Great Depression, food shortages, drought, and poverty meant that people had to get creative with what they ate. In a time with less access to certain fresh fruits and vegetables, and definitely less meat, families had to endure monotonous weekly meals. Variety was welcome since eating potatoes or beans 7 nights a week could become very tiresome. Unique combinations meant that even if they couldn't get their favorite meals, they were at least enjoying some tasty new combinations. These 9 Depression-era dishes brought some color and flavor to the table, and most importantly, they fed a lot of people with just a little bit of money. Garbage plate. The garbage plate, a local specialty in Rochester, New York, actually got its start during the hard times of World War I, but it really took off during the Great Depression. When food shortages again meant that folks were craving stick-to-your-ribs meals, a hot plate brimming with food was just irresistible. The name of garbage plate didn't come along until later, but back in the old days it was called pots and hots, short for potatoes and hots. Hots, of course, being an old-fashioned term for hot dogs. The dish is still being served today, but now it's more of a regional New England treat. A garbage plate can have any of the following ingredients: hot dogs, hamburger patties, macaroni salad, beans, eggs, home fries, and/or cheese. Jake and Lena cookies. Named after a radio show called Jake and Lena that promoted the recipe, these cookies were also known as poor man's cookies. Flavored with raisins, nutmeg, cinnamon, and walnuts, these cookie bars were likely still out of the reach for many poorer families, but they don't contain any eggs, which would have enabled the cook to save those for soups, sandwiches, or scrambles. Carrot pie. This uncommon treat dates back to at least 1845, but the hard times of the 1930s meant that a return to older American habits of using veggies in sweet pies again made good sense. This sweet pie uses many of the same ingredients as an apple pie, but with pureed carrots instead of apples. Porcupine meatballs. This dish gets its name from the rice in the recipe, which not only extends the meat by a long way, but it also sticks out like little porcupine quills. Considered an American classic by some, this is one Depression-era dish that many people still make to this day as a comfort food. WPA soup. Most of us have heard of Hoover stew, but WPA soup remains a lesser-known beast. The Works Progress Administration wasn't founded until President Franklin D. Roosevelt's first term, well after Hoover was out of office. This soup consists of sausage, eggs, potatoes, parsley, and onions, among other ingredients. While not an extravagant dish by our modern standards, the name reflects a change in employment for many because of the WPA that enabled them to buy eggs and sausage, things not found in Hoover stew. Boiled milkweed pods. They've been described as reminiscent of fiddlehead ferns in their taste, and these foraged vegetables were a delicacy for some during the Great Depression. They had to be boiled twice to get rid of their bitter taste, but the cost was free, and the milkweed plant grows wild all over the country. Bologna casserole. It's called a casserole if you sprinkle cheese on top and then bake it, but many families did not have cheese during the Great Depression. Without cheese, this pasta dish is more like John Marzetti or American chop suey. Very filling, simple, and yummy. Water cocoa. When you don't have milk, you can still make cocoa. Water cocoa is a treat because it's warm and sweet, and cocoa was one of the more readily available and shelf-stable ingredients at the time. While it wasn't cheap, cocoa could do a lot in the kitchen, unlike other spices and seasoning, making it an essential ingredient. Poor man's meal. This main dish was made from broth, potatoes, onions, and cut-up hot dogs. Potatoes and onions were two foods that were not usually in short supply during the Great Depression, and so many recipes from the era lean heavily on these two staples. Cheaper cuts of meat and processed meats were more common during the 1930s, and hot dogs were a very easy way to add protein to a cheap meal. This basic dinner can be stretched to feed a crowd and goes down really easily with both adults and kids alike. Add a little salt and pepper for the ultimate in a quick and simple dish.